Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna be discussing the Alligator poem by Mary Oliver. So first thing first, Mary Oliver was a 19th century poet, born in 1935. Had just recently passed away as well, last year in January. A fun fact, she was actually born in Ohio, but mostly grew up in New England, which would influence her in her writing her poems, mostly due to nature and all the scenes that she had seen while growing up in New England. So this is the poem, the Alligator poem. It is a. Before I read it out, I just want to point out that it is I believe to be a free verse poem. It doesn't really follow any sort of rhyme scheme. It doesn't. It's not broken up into stanzas, 4-line stanzas, or 6-line stanzas, or 8-line stanzas. It's one big stanza it pretty much in most of the lines as well will be ended with a comma. It doesn't really end with periods as much um, until it gets to the part. It doesn't until it gets to a certain point in the poem, but it does use a lot of punctuation to break up the lines, and which will in later will help the meaning towards the poem. So I'm not gonna read the whole poem because it is a very long poem, but I'm going to read the first part, which is the main action in this poem. I knelt down at the edge of the water, and if the white bird standing in the tops of the trees whistled any warning, I didn't understand. I drank up to the very moment it came crashing toward me, its tail flailing like a bundle of swords, slashing the grass, and the inside of its cradle-shaped mouth gaping in rimmed white teeth. And that's how I almost died, of foolishness and beautiful Florida. But I didn't. So in the first part of this poem, she she had experienced a near death experience, um, interacting with an alligator. We all know by now that alligators are ferocious and they will um, attack even if they're not provoked. You can tell as she uses a simile towards the alligator as well. Its tail flailing like a bundle of swords. Um, it's a very it's a very good simile describing what how that tail would feel like, and you can see she follows it up by slashing the grass as well, um, because the alligator's tails are very strong. They're sometimes long, and they could knock somebody out as well. Um, but I feel like in the beginning of this poem as well, the alligator is more of um, a symbol instead of a metaphor, I think, because the alligator to me would symbolize, some like destruction or um, something that just happens in for the worst, pretty much. And this happens almost all the time. people face not only near-death experiences, but a bad point in their lives where they don't feel like they can bounce back from it. In the second part of this poem, Mary Oliver does explain too that the poem that she wrote, this poem, was not about foolishness. It was more about how she rose from the ground and seeing the world as for a second time. Pretty much, I take that as she you're given a second chance. When somebody faces an experience like that, and given a second chance, it's sometimes uplifting. It's um, it's an eye opener to some people, and she uses and Mary Oliver, who is a very was a poet mostly drawn to nature. Um, she does also describe a lot of it in the later part of this poem, if you don't mind. The water, that circle of shattered glass, healed itself with a slow whisper, and lay back with the backlit light of polished steel, and the birds and the endless waterfalls of the trees shook open the snowy pleats of their wings and drifted away. While for a keepsake and to steady myself, I reached out. I picked the wild flowers from the grass around me, blue stars and blood-red trumpets on long green stems. For hours in my trembling hands they glittered like fire. So it is a very descriptive and powerful message conveyed here using nature. Um, you know, to get out there to, just to see everything around for what it truly can be as well. She does use some other metaphors in here too, comparing the water, that circle of shattered glass, comparing water to, of course, shattered glass in this case. And you can also say she does use personification in this poem as well to, have the reader best understand what is going on in the poem. As in the beginning, you can see that trees whistled. Um, Great use of personification, and then she keeps it. She goes again with the water and the with a slow whisper as well. Um, After reading this poem, it does give a new insight of, you know, destruction can come in at any time, just like this alligator. The alligator represents, it can happen at any point. And it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't matter what the case is, it'll happen. As she does say in this poem, it's not about foolishness from this destruction. It's mostly about how she rises from this experience and what she can possibly go out and do again, do more. Um, she was given this second chance, being lucky that this did not turn out to a to death. Uh, I we also see um, some more descriptive as well, going back to the alligator. It's the line right here. I leaped aside and fell, and streamed past me, crushing everything in its path. Again, it's what I said before. It can destruction can. It doesn't matter what's going on. Destruction can happen at any point. It will crush everything and everyone as well to possibly destroy you. It's not about being foolish of what happened. It's about rising from these moments. Uh, and I thank you for watching this. Everyone have a great weekend.